I know better, but somehow this makes it sound as though we should not mind what others do to us in relationships. They can do nothing. And so long as we hold our equilibrium, keep ourselves centered, and all that good stuff, nothing can touch us. But others do touch us. Their actions do sometimes hurt us. It is when the hurt comes into relationships that I don't know what to do. It's all very well to say, stand aside from it, cause it to mean nothing. But that's easier said than done. I do get hurt by the words and actions of others in relationships. The day will come when you will not. That will be the day on which you realize and actualize the true meaning of relationships, the true reason for them. It is because you have forgotten this that you react the way you do. But that is all right. That is a part of the growth process. It is part of evolution. It is soul work you are up to in relationship. Yet there is a grand understanding, a grand remembering. Until you remember this and remember then also how to use relationship as a tool in the creation of self. You must work at the level at which you are. The level of understanding, the level of willingness, the level of remembrance. And so there are things you can do when you react with pain and hurt to what another is being, saying, or doing. The first is to admit honestly to yourself and to another exactly how you're feeling. This many of you are afraid to do because you think it will make you look bad. Somewhere deep inside of you, you realize that it probably is ridiculous for you to feel that way. It probably is small of you. You are bigger than that, but you can't help it. You still feel that. There is only one thing you can do. You must honor your feeling. For honoring your feeling means honoring yourself. And you must love your neighbor as you love yourself. How can you ever expect to understand and honor the feeling of another if you cannot honor the feeling within yourself? The first question in any interactive process with another is, who am I and who do I want to be in relationship to that? Often you do not remember who you are and do not know who you want to be until you try out a few ways of being. This is why honoring your truest feeling is so important. If your first feeling is a negative feeling, simply having the feeling is frequently all that is needed to step away from it. It is when you have the anger, have the upset, have the disgust, have the rage, own the feeling of wanting to hurt back, that you can disown these feelings as not who you want to be. The master is one who has lived through enough such experiences to know in advance what her final choices are. She does not need to try out anything. She's worn these clothes before and knows they do not fit. They are not her. And since a master's life is devoted to the constant realization of self, as one knows oneself to be, such ill fitting feelings would never be entertained. That is why masters are imperturbable in the face of what others might call calamity. A master blesses calamity, for the master knows that from the seeds of disaster and all experience comes the growth of self. And the master's second life purpose is always growth. For once one has fully self realized, there is nothing left to do except be more. It is at this stage that one moves from soul work to God work, for this is what I am up to. I will assume, for the purpose of this discussion, that you are still up to soul work. You are still seeking to realize, make real who you truly are. Will give you bountiful opportunities to create that. Remember, life is not a process of discovery, life is a process of creation. You can create who you are over and over again. Indeed, you do every day. As things now stand, you do not always come up with the same answer. However, given an identical outer experience, on day one, you may choose to be patient, loving, and kind in relationship to it. On day two, you may choose to be angry, ugly, and sad. The master is one who always comes up with the same answer, and that answer is always the highest choice. In this, the master is eminently predictable. Conversely, the student is completely unpredictable. One can tell how one is doing on the road to mastery by simply noticing how predictably one makes the highest choice in responding or reacting to any situation. Of course, this throws up the question, what choice is highest? That is a question around which have revolved the philosophies and theologies of man since the beginning of time. If the question truly engages you, you are already on your way to mastery. For it is still true that most people continue to be engaged by another question altogether. Not what is the highest choice, but what is the most profitable, or how can I lose the least? When life is lived from a standpoint of damage control or optimum advantage, the true benefit of life is forfeited. The opportunity is lost, the chance is missed. For a life lived thusly is a life lived from fear, and that life speaks a lie about you. For you are not fear, you are love. Love that needs no protection. Love that cannot be lost. Yet, you will never know this in your experience if you continually answer the second question and not the first. For only a person who thinks there is something to gain or lose asks the second question. And only a person who sees life in a different way, who sees self as a higher being, who understands that winning or losing is not the test, but only loving or failing to love, only that person asks the first. He who asks the second question, I am my body, she who asks the first says, I am my soul. Yeah. Let all those who have ears to hear listen, for I tell you this, at the critical juncture in all human relationships, there is only one question: what would love do now? No other question is relevant, no other question is meaningful, no other question has any importance to your soul. So, what is the author actually trying to say right now is, सबसे पहले, in case there is some kind of a feeling which is inside of you, and it's coming from a external situation, person, event, or a circumstance, it's very important to honor the feelings. But उस honor के feeling में कहीं ना कहीं हमारी mind की ego बीच में आ जाती है कि how can I behave like this, or I will sound so stupid, or what will the other person say, what if the other person minds what I'm saying. Now that again is a valid question, because we are in a social setup where we are dependent on others. But if there is something which is bothering us inside of us, and if we do not vent out the same, that particular instant event or circumstances, or that memory related to that particular person, event, or circumstances is going to be stored as a trauma inside your body. So honoring the feeling clearly states that it has to not stay inside the body. So when he's talking about communicating with the other person, the main concept or the main funda behind honoring the feeling is to not, give it that importance so that it stays in your body. Because if it stays in your body and the feeling has not been honored or communicated, it is going to make a permanent address, and that is actually the address of the trauma in the body, which, later down gets into some kind of a disease. And if not, treated well or dealt with it well, actually turns into a disease. So how can we honor our feelings without getting the other person hurt? That is where we need to work. So in order to express how we truly feel, it's very important to have that confidence firstly within us. और अगर आपको initially ये लगता है कि it is very difficult for me to express to the other person in that particular situation, particular event, and I don't have that confidence, it's okay. It'll take time. But you can vent it out, na? You can write down, you can probably, just go to the washroom and, speak it out in front of the mirror. Because if you let that thing, suppressed feeling, because if the feeling is not honored, it becomes a suppressed feeling. And if you let that suppressed feeling be and don't do anything about it, it is actually going to take an address and convert itself into a trauma. So usko agar hum directly nahi bol sakte. See, because in a lot of cases ऐसे हमारे childhood experiences है that at one point of time हुआ क्या कि हमने कुछ बोलना था, हमने वो बोला बचपन में और हमें पड़ी मार दबा के. अब वो बच्चा तो डर गया कि भैया फीलिंग ऑनर करना तो मार खाना है. तो उसने क्या किया आने वाले टाइम में? saying no becomes the only option. So these people, and this is, I'm talking a majority set of people, have actually developed an issue due to certain childhood traumatic experiences, that saying no is the only option they have. Or, they have to, I correct my statement, they cannot say no. Saying no is not an option, they cannot say no. because उनको पता है पिछली बार उन्होंने ना बोली तो पटाई हुई थी, तो अब ये खा ले, अच्छा जी, ये कर ले, अच्छा जी. Because that trauma of being hit was so strong for that small child that he now is of this very clear view कि भैया ना नहीं बोलनी. And during this entire transformational phase of that child becoming an adult, the child now being an adult actually forms a attitude of people pleaser, and he becomes a people pleaser, because for him to say no is a big terror because of that past childhood experience. So he will never say no, he will always say yes. And he will actually find it an issue to say no. So it is not कि उसको no बोलना नहीं आता. It is just that उसके पास्ट में ऐसा इशू हुआ है, तो वो कहता है यार it is better कि हाँ बोल दो, नहीं तो बहुत बुरी हालत हो सकती. And he becomes a people pleaser. And this is a common case amongst a lot of adults and teenagers, right? But what do we do? ठीक है, you had certain experiences where you were there. Either you work on that inner child, get yourself, therapy for that. If you can't do that, what do we do? Not everybody can, manage to get a therapist, or not everybody can manage to go for therapy. Is to start getting these experiences out of your system. Because जहां वो इनिशियल चाइल्ड का एक्सपीरियंस स्टोर हुआ है, जब ये ऐसे सिमिलर सर्कमस्टांसेस हमारी लाइफ में आ रहे हैं और हम उसी तरीके से रिएक्ट कर रहे हैं जैसे हमने बाद में किया, डर से कि मार ना पड़े. सो दैट मेमोरी एंड दैट concept and that lesson of always saying yes or always being a people pleaser gets more enforced. और वो हमें पता भी नहीं लगता हम कैसे कर रहे हैं. I mean, for a lot of people, becoming a people pleaser is a natural habit, but whereas it is a defense mechanism. हमें लगता है कि हमारी I'm like this only. No, you need to go back to that childhood experience where things happened, where why you are like this. Because it is okay. आज के बच्चों से बात करो, if they want to say no, yes, they say no. They have no issues. But for us to say no to our parents, hello, मरना है. Because of certain childhood traumatic experience. But इसका मतलब ये नहीं कि हम उसको वहीं चुप करके बैठ जाए. Right now, what you can do is, if there is a situation where you cannot confront and you feel the other person is going to feel bad because you have that innate people pleasing personality, which as your defense mechanism so strong that you do not want to confront. It's okay, but you can still work on yourself by writing it out. These two fingers are actually closely associated with the subconscious mind. So whatever you write actually gets registered more in the subconscious mind. So if you are trying to release that trauma with writing it out, it will help. Because then you're not giving that trauma a permanent address. Or whatever is the permanent address, you're not giving them more visitors to make it more stronger as their residence. Or you can, speak it out in front of the mirror. Or if you want, you can just go outside without a mirror, just speak it out, just blurt it out. Whatever is it that you want to do not let that trauma stay inside. Honor the feeling. अगर आपको लग रहा है और आप उस टाइम पे कुछ नहीं कर पा रहे हो, it's okay, but be aware that yes, it's there, and then work on it. Don't let it go just like this, because आज तक वही किया है.
Can I ask you, how do we overcome such things? Because I'm already, I had a baggage. I'm still carrying it, I must say, but I am unable to overcome that thing.
So there's therapy for that.
Okay.
So therapy is if you want to. If you do not want to, then it's a conscious effort. That जो situations आपके पास आ रही है, start writing it and then tear it down. It's not that necessary that you have to give it to the other person. What is more important, that the thing should be out of your system. It's like, see, any kind of work on yourself, चाहे वो आप healing कह लो, चाहे वो आप spiritual growth कह लो, चाहे वो आप religious growth कह लो, जहां मर्जी आप जाओ, it is all about cleaning. So we are cleaning our body every day when we have a bath. In healing, we are cleaning those memories जो हमारे वहाँ स्टोर हुए हुए हैं. So each and everything boils down to the fact that we need to clean things. अब वो आप अपने चॉइस से कर सकते हो और एफर्ट से कर सकते हो. It's not that it's not possible. It is possible. A conscious effort has to be made. But if you feel that you do not want to get this, you find it difficult, you can go for a therapy. And therapy also, it's not necessary that you need to be actively involved in a therapy. You can always go for a soul group constellation where you put your problem and you'll have people, enacting your problems, and you will be seeing कि हाँ मेरी life में ये हो रहा है. So the various ways.
Thank you.
Now we come upon a very delicate point of interpretation, for the principle of love sponsored action has been widely misunderstood. And it is this misunderstanding which has led to the resentments and angers of life, which in turn have caused so many to stray from the path. For centuries, you have been taught that love sponsored action arises out of the choice to be, do, and have whatever produces the highest good for another. Yet, I tell you this, the highest choice is that which produces the highest for you. As with all profound spiritual truth, this statement opens itself to immediate misinterpretation. The mystery clears a bit the moment one decides what is the highest good one could go for oneself. And when the absolute highest choice is made, the mystery dissolves. The circle completes itself, and the highest good for you becomes the highest good for another. It may take lifetimes to understand this, and even more lifetimes to implement, for this truth revolves around an even greater one. What you do for yourself, you do for another. What you do for another, you do for the self. This is because you and the other are one. And this is because there is not but you. All the masters who have walked your planet have taught this. Verily, verily, I say unto you, inasmuch as ye have done it unto one of the least of these, my brethren, ye have done it unto me. Yet this has remained for most people merely a grand esoteric truth with little practical application. In fact, it is the most practically applicable esoteric truth of all time. It is important in relationships to remember this truth, for without it, relationships will be very difficult. Let's go back to the practical applications of this wisdom and step away from the purely spiritual, esoteric aspect of it for now. So often, under the old understandings, people, well meaning and well intentioned, and many very religious, did what they thought would be best for the other person in their relationships. Sadly, all this produced in most cases, was continued abuse by the other, continued mistreatment, continued dysfunction in the relationship. Ultimately, the person trying to do what is right by the other, to be quick to forgive, to show compassion, to continually look past certain problems and behaviors, becomes resentful, angry, and mistrusting even of God. For how can a just God demand such unending suffering, joylessness, and sacrifice, even in the name of love? The answer is God does not. God asks only that you include yourself among those you love. God goes further. God suggests, recommends that you put yourself first. I do this knowing full well that some of you will call this blasphemy and therefore not my word, and that others of you will do what might be even worse, accept it as my word and misinterpret or distort it to suit your own purposes, to justify ungodly acts. I tell you this, putting yourself first in the highest sense never leads to an ungodly act. Yeah, Supriya.
Yeah, but I've noticed.
Go on. I can't hear you. Am I audible, guys?
You are,
Yeah.
but he isn't.
Yeah. Yeah, Supriya, we can't hear you. Hold your question. We'll get back to you. Work on your internet because somehow it's not audible. I tell you this, putting yourself first in the highest sense never leads to an ungodly act. If, therefore, you have caught yourself in an ungodly act as a result of doing what is best for you, the confusion is not in having put yourself first, but rather in misunderstanding what is best for you. Of course, determining what is best for you will require you to also determine what it is you're trying to do. This is an important step that many people ignore. What are you up to? What is your purpose in life? Without answers to these questions, the matter of what is best in any given circumstances will remain a mystery. As a practical matter, again, leaving esoterics aside, if you look at what is best for you in these situations where you are being abused, at the very least, what you will do is stop the abuse, and that will be good for both you and your abuser. For even an abuser is abused when his abuse is allowed to continue. This is not healing to the abuser, but damaging. For if the abuser finds that his abuse is acceptable, what has he learned? Yet, if the abuser finds that his abuse will be accepted no more, what has he been allowed to discover? Therefore, treating others with love does not necessarily mean allowing others to do as they wish. Parents learn this early with children. Adults are not so quick to learn it with other adults, nor nation with nation. Yet, despots cannot be allowed to flourish, but must be stopped in their despotism. Love of self and love of the despot demands it. This is the answer to your question. If love is all there is, how can man ever justify war? Yeah, Supriya, you want to ask now?
Yeah, did my question reach you guys? I'm
No,
not
no, no,
sure.
not at all, nothing.
Okay, the question was that if one makes, does something, takes a decision, wants to do because it will give joy to you, and you're thinking about yourself first, and it doesn't go well with others who, you know, then you feel bad about that. Okay, maybe you shouldn't have done it. Then
हम्म,
how does one, you know,
यही
deal
तो
with
वो
that?
बोल रहा है कि ये होता ही है। हर बंदा दूसरे के बारे में अच्छा सोच के ही करता है, बट वो रिएक्ट तो इट ऑलवेज hampers the others, it's never taken well. That's the whole issue. Because जब
Right.
हम दूसरे का सोच रहे हैं और अपना नहीं सोच रहे हैं, तो कहीं ना कहीं अपना इंटरेस्ट के लिए हम भी बड़ा कुछ करेंगे ना. So I'll put it better, like what
हाँ.
Saurabh said, that if this is giving me a above the line feeling and the other is also getting above the line feeling, so who is he thinking about first? Himself. So जब आप
Okay.
पहले अपने आप के बारे में सोच के दूसरों के बारे में करोगे, then it is going to land well. But अगर आप खाली दूसरों के बारे में सोचोगे, it is never going to land well. And it happens. बंदा इतने इंटेंशन से करता है, उसका तो अच्छा होगा, ये होगा, he'll be so happy, he'll be so pleased. It never happens that. At least 70-80% times never happens. 20-30 times it does happen. Because as a soul, you are actually responsible for yourself. So you need to keep yourself first. उस yourself में other person की क्या value है, उसको भी आपको equally importance तो देनी पड़ेगी. But yes, when you go all out for the other person without your interest, it actually, gets haywire. That's what he's written.
Okay.
Sometimes man must go to war to make the grandest statement about who man truly is, he who abhors war. There are times when you have to give up who you are in order to be who you are. There are masters who have taught you cannot have it all until you are willing to give it all up. Thus, in order to have yourself as a man of peace, you have to give up the ideas of yourself as a man who never goes to war. History has called upon men for such decisions. The same is true in the most individual and the most personal relationships. Life may more than once call upon you to prove who you are by demonstrating an aspect of who you are not. This is not so difficult to understand if you have lived a few years, though for the idealistically young, it may seem the ultimate contradiction. In more mature retrospection, it seems more divine dichotomy. This does not mean in human relationships that if you are being hurt, you have to hurt back. Nor does it mean so in relationships between nations. It simply means that to allow another to continually inflict damage may not be the most loving thing to do for yourself or the other. This should put to rest some pacifist theories that highest love requires no forceful response to what you consider evil. The discussion here turns esoteric once more because no serious exploration of this statement can ignore the word evil and the value judgments it invites. In truth, there is nothing evil, only objective phenomena and experience. Yet, your very purpose in life requires you to select from the growing collection of endless phenomena a scattered few which you call evil. For unless you do, you cannot call yourself nor anything else good, and thus cannot know or create yourself. By that which you call evil, do you define yourself? And by that which you call good, the biggest evil would therefore be to declare nothing evil at all. You exist in this life in the world of the relative, where one thing can exist only insofar as it relates to another. This is at one and the same time both the function and purpose of your relationship, to provide a field of experience within which you find yourself, define yourself, and if you choose constantly recreate who you are. Choosing to be godlike does not mean you choose to be a martyr, and it certainly does not mean you choose to be a victim. On your way to mastery, when all possibility of hurt, damage, and loss is eliminated, it would be well to recognize hurt, damage, and loss as part of your experience and decide who you are in relationship to it. Yet, the things that others think, say, or do will sometimes hurt you until they do not anymore. What will get you from here to there most quickly is total honesty. Being willing to assert, acknowledge, and declare exactly how you feel about a thing. Say your truth kindly, but fully and completely. Live your truth gently, but totally and consistently. Change your truth easily and quickly when your experience brings you new clarity. No one in right mind, least of all God, would tell you when you are hurt in a relationship to stand aside from it, cause it to mean nothing. If you are now hurting, it is too late to cause it to mean nothing. Your task now is to decide what it does mean and to demonstrate that. For in so doing, you choose and become who you seek to be. जहां पे भी एक relationship है, वहां पे the other person is definitely playing a part, because this is a world of duality. And as the author refers to the duality as relativity. So, you know what evil is, then only you will know what good is. So even in a relationship, जब भी हमारे को कोई एक्सपीरियंसेस मिलते हैं या जिस एक्सपीरियंस के लिए हम उस रिलेशनशिप में भी हैं और इस पर्टिकुलर लाइफ में हैं, they all are going to come through duality. So that means if we are here for, to experience peace of mind, so there is going to be a lot of situations where your peace of mind is going to be tested. Because that is how the experience of peace of mind, that wisdom of having that peace of mind is going to come through that experience only, through that relationship only. एंड इस पूरे सिनेरियो में हम लोग या डर के बैठ जाते हैं या लड़ाई पे आ जाते हैं या छोड़ देते हैं. दैट्स इट. देयर इज एन ऑप्शन where you can make your way through it, because if it's a relationship that has hurt you, that means there are your feelings in that relationship. If somebody has a fight outside your house and you do not know them, you will not have feelings for them. So hurt only comes where there is love. It cannot come if there is no promise of love. So अगर वो एक कोई uncomfortable situation हो रही है, it is always advisable to work your way through it rather than quit, move away, and say, yeah, let it be. No. At the end of the day, you are your only responsibility. And if it's a situation where there is hurt, that means there is love. What we need to do is we need to work from that premise of love. And, even if that means that, you have to let go of certain things, it's okay. That's a choice you make. Because everything is a mixed bag. If it's good, it's bad. Coin तो दोनों मिलेगा, एक ही मिलेगा जिसमें दोनों है. If there is pain, there is pleasure. Coin तो और experience तो आपको duality से ही मिलेंगे. So you need to stand in those situations, shift your focus, and approach it more from a premise of love rather than get your ego involved. Because होता क्या है, वो hurt feeling किसकी होती है? Ego की. ऐसे कैसे? What does he think? So now, how do we know in a relationship when we are having a fight, whether it's the ego being hurt or the soul being hurt? Always work with the check. Is there any judgment? Was there too much of expectation? Am I comparing something? Am I criticizing something? जहां पे चार है, ये माइंड का गेम है, माइंड का लोचा है, समझ जाओ ईगो करके हर्ट आ रहा है. Because if it's love, it will not hurt, because love is unconditional. It will never hurt. यार एक बच्चा आपको थप्पड़ मार जाता है, लिटरली थप्पड़ मार जाता है, और बंदे को लगता है यार बड़ी चोट से लगा है. What do we do? It's a relationship. And it's an act of violence. But it is perceived from the premise of love. That's the only difference. But वही थप्पड़ अगर किसी बड़े ने मार दिया तो हो गई, अब ऐसे ऐसे कैसे मुझे मारा? That's the only issue. Because then the mujhe mara is coming from that premise of ego. The act is the same. Somebody has hit you. उसको देखने का नजरिया बदल जाता है. So even if you are facing a situation where there is a certain things or experiencings which are unpleasant, not so pleasant, it's okay. Try to make them or try to see them from the premise of love. And if you feel uncomfortable, there is no harm in expressing yourself. But yes, you need to be kind. और होता क्या है, at that spur moment, if you start to express yourself, chances are you're going to react, not respond. So वहां पे आपको थोड़ा सा अपने आप को समझना पड़ेगा. But yeah, I mean, if it's a very clear criteria that you feel hurt only from your loved one, you will not feel hurt from anybody else. Anything happening outside happens to you, you won't feel that hurt जो एक loved one के साथ हम hurt होते हैं in a relationship, because the premise, there is that love at that base, and it's not just from you, it's from the other side too. हम लड़ाई भी उसी से करते हैं जो हमारा अपना होता है. राह जाते हैं किसी के साथ जल्दी लड़ाई नहीं करते, unless until को एक्सीडेंट हो जाए. आज मुझे गुस्सा आ रहा है, चल रिक्शा वाले को पकड़ता हूं, अपना गुस्सा निकालता हूं. नो, because you have that confidence, and sometimes yes, overconfidence, that they will handle. So I'm not trying to get into the details of the confidence and the overconfidence, but yes, आप लड़ाई भी उन्हीं से करते हो जिनसे प्यार करते हो. So in that situation, हर एक चीज को देखने का, समझने का एक नजरिया बनाना पड़ता है. बट उस टाइम पे हम रिएक्ट करते हैं rather than respond करते हैं. So make sure that you are in that right frame of mind, so that you are in that place that the ego is not at play, and you are coming from a sane perspective of evaluating things from the premise of love. So I don't have to be the long-suffering wife or the belittled husband or the victim of my relationship in order to render them holy or to make them pleasing in the eyes of God. Good grief, of course not. And I don't have to pull up with attacks on my dignity assaults on my pride, damage to my psyche, and wounds to my heart in order to say that I gave it my best in a relationship, did my duty, and met my obligation in the eyes of God and man, not for 1 minute. Then pray God, tell me, what promises should I make in relationship? What agreements must I keep? What obligations do relationships carry? What guidelines should I seek? The answer is the answer you cannot hear, for it leaves you without guidelines and renders null and void every agreement in the moment you make it. The answer is you have no obligation, neither in relationship nor in all of life. No obligation, nor any restriction or limitation, nor any guidelines or rules, nor are you bound by any circumstances or situations, nor constrained by any code or law, nor are you punishable for any offense, nor capable of any. For there is no such thing as being offensive in the eyes of God.